Hello, 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 and a massive hello to everybody. Hope everybody's having a great day wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. This is 50 Pips, rocking and rolling here, 30th of September 2018. No trade calls or recommendations. Everybody's responsible for their own stuff because we're here for educational purpose only. So, what's happening as we head into the last quarter of the year? Interesting things. Keep in mind, China's on holiday this week. We've got an RBA decision. We've got Powell speaking a couple of times, and then we got those non-farm payrolls. So where are we? So looking at the markets here, we've got essentially markets still staying bid. Two things sticking out. Well, you can see here the ES hovering at highs, YM hovering at highs, and NASDAQ hovering at highs. Our preferred short so far has been, and it's working out quite nicely, is the weakness in this Russell. And this is something that's going to be very interesting to see going into the week, is how we behave here, right? Can it get closes back above this 50 DMA? And is any rally going to get sold? Because if it keeps on, if we move back into this pivotal level, and the sellers keep on coming in, I think we got a good shot to see this try and come all the way back down into that 200 DMA. Now, NASDAQ continues to stay very, very strong, and we've seen some signs of a little bit of weakness on the YM with this move above the highs and failure to get follow through. So clearly that's going to be the bull bear line for new highs or the 50 DMA going into the week, and that 26,000 level. And on the ES, we got that negative reversal at all-time highs. If fails, it's back below this level, and this is going to be the bull bear line for a move back into those highs or into the 50. Now, what's interesting and I think worth noting is, despite this strength or apparent strength we're seeing in the markets, if you look at some of the sector ETFs, the story's a little bit different. So remember, we were talking about the weakness on, we've been trading the weakness on GS, right? A Goldman. And we always like to say Goldman always knows. You see how this is really not a beautiful picture of health. And if you look at XLF, so the financials, it's not really looking pretty, right? For a market that's at all-time highs and everything's supposed to be great and we're supposed to keep on pressing higher, look at this on the weekly. Look at this on the monthly, right? That's a pretty ugly close on the monthly, right? So these are financials. Now let's look at a couple of these other. And again, look at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days in a row. It's ugly. So let's look at some of these other, just because I think it's interesting. We don't usually look at these, but I think it's interesting. Let's see if this loads. Look at the transports, right? Through these highs, and then we're failing, right? Let's look at XRT, retail. It looks like this trade view is a little bit slow today, but we'll deal with it. XRT, come on, load. Also, another one of these sector ETFs where you see we broke through these highs, and then it's a steady move back lower. IYR, real estate. Not exactly, look at it on the weekly, not exactly picture of health. XHB, housing market. Home builders, look at this on the daily, similar to what we've seen on the XLF. Look at it on the weekly. Not exactly pretty, right? XLE. How about looking at energy? Back into these highs. You see that pattern? XLI. Let's see how many of these I remember. Industrials. Same thing. We make it to these highs and we're stalling. XLU. Oops, don't know what I did there. Let's see if we can load it. XLU. Why is it not loading? There must be something strange going on here. XL. I don't know why it won't load it. Yeah, there's some kind of stalling. Anyway, you get the point, right? I think it's important if for a market that's holding so bid, it doesn't really look like it's a picture of health, if you see what I mean. So I think it's something you want to keep an eye out for. It doesn't mean markets can't continue to grind to new highs with a small number of names, keep on pressing these, but I think it's something you have to pay attention to. Now, in terms of two standout charts, which I wanted to mention, one is silver. We've been on this for a while, even on Twitter. We've been talking about this. Look at how it's trying to hold. Keep an eye on the weekly. Keep an eye on the monthly, and see what's happening. This is a really, really important level, real key zone. If you go back on the weekly and take a step back, you see how basically since 2015, right, this has been a base. We come in here, and it's trying to rotate higher, right? It's trying to rotate higher. Look at it on the daily. See all these wicks? Tries to fake out. Everybody's expecting a last minute flush, and it starts to rotate. It's back into the 50 DMA. Hasn't seen the 50 for a long time. Look at it on the weekly. How did it close the weekly? Everybody talking about the death of silver, but this is the second week we're closing strong. And look at it on the monthly, right? Positive close on the monthly. So here there's clearly potential, even if this is going to stay heavy. If there's a little bit of an unwind, there's a clear potential for this to pop a couple of bucks. Now, back on the daily, we've pretty much broken through 20-day range. So I would expect this 50 DMA to get challenged. And if we could trigger some stops, I would not be surprised to see a very, very quick move, another buck to the upside, but there's a potential for $2 here. It's a really interesting one, and silver tends to lead gold, so I definitely keep an eye on this. And then in terms of currencies, we don't usually talk about what we call the funky currencies, but when we do, there's usually a good reason. And remember, we've been talking about the action here on CHF JPY, just discussing how the relationship had really gotten out of whack, and we expected this to be a very, very nice trade here, looking for the relationship to come back into whack, especially because we seen the CHF really, really, really get hit, catch a lot of strength, right? And the yen was going nowhere. So just as a reminder, USD CHF. See, we had this beautiful double top we traded, rotation back into the 50 back of the move from A to B. Strong unwind here, a lot of CHF strength against the dollar. And what happened in the meantime? USD JPY, well, the opposite happened, right? So again, we said it was time for this relationship to come back into whack, that we'd seen way too much CHF strength compared to JPY weakness, with that USD JPY going higher. And here I think there's a good chunk of the move is done, but clearly there is a lot more room to run if it's going to retrace the 50 back of this move, or even if it's going to come back into this cluster. If you look at that move from lows to highs, what's interesting here is also that we've got a lot of confluence here. All these moving averages are coming in line with a 50 back A to B. So keep an eye on this, because we feel there's this is a good trade already, but there's more room to run here, and it could easily accelerate. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. Now, one last single pair here, USD CAD. We talked about the potential here. This is a very, very nice trade. So remember, we were stuck in this triangle, which you could see on the weekly, right? And we had a lot of wheeling and dealing, especially on the NAFTA negotiations. We said there's a clear possibility that this is a false break to the upside. Now, once this broke up, you saw we started to trade this to the short side again in a very, very tight channel. And this, bam, we got that fake out. And after we got this, it made sense to us to continue to try and play the downside, not only because of the technicals, but also because, ultimately we felt that some kind of a deal was going to come into play. But look at how, forget what's going on in terms of the news flow. Look at how technical the action has been here. Fake out there, we break down hard, we come back in, and these two moving averages, the 50 and the 100, keep on holding it. Look at how tight, see these rejections here with those wicks? Chances to play this extremely tight. Now here, what you want to look at going into the week is close above or below the 200 day, and if we get an aggressive flush below the 2800. This could be, if it's going to hold, this is a good area of support. This is a good place for it to hold. But if the news flow helps and we stay below that 200, do not be surprised to see this move back to the 126 very, very quickly. Now, apart from that, the big question across the board, whether you're a yen trader, whether you're euro, whether you're looking at cable, is what's happening with the DXY. Now, I think here what I'm going to say is we're going to be very unpopular and say that nothing's going on. So here, if you could argue it both ways, but we're not going to change the way we're looking at it. To us, this still looks like some kind of complex topping pattern, and we're looking to see a move back in the 92.60s. And if you look at this on the weekly, which has been our control chart, this signal is still valid, and we still haven't moved back above these moving averages, back above the 200 and back above the 100 on the weekly. Should we get a daily close this week above the 200 and the 100, we would expect the market to try and take a very quick and aggressive stab at clearing these highs. It wouldn't be conclusive on the day because our control chart is the weekly, so we have to see how the week closes. But if we close a day above these two, we would expect this attempt to come in very, very quickly. As long as we don't close above those, we still see this as overhead resistance and this move as the path of least resistance. So that's pretty much what we're looking for. Sorry if a little bit slower pace today, but especially going through all those ETFs and TradingView was a little bit slow. But I think it's really worth paying attention. It doesn't mean that all those ETFs are meaning the market's going to crash tomorrow. But to us, it means that underneath this apparent strength, we've talked about it, just a few names holding it up, everything isn't rosy, right? Everything that glitters isn't gold. So let's keep an eye on it. We still think there are a lot of interesting opportunities out there, and especially with those retracements we've seen on Euro, Aussie, Kiwi, we'll have to see what happens because they clearly have an awful lot of potential to move. Keep in mind, Euro is still stuck in that. Let's just look at that lastly. Euro-Usd. And as we've been saying, as long as that DXY is stuck there, it's just the lazy trade mechanics on Euro, right? And what are the lazy trade mechanics? Are long 1550, stop below that 1500 for a retest of 1800. short 1800, stop above 1850 for a retest of the 1550. And it's just a range trade. And again, you shouldn't be surprised because we've been stuck here for a long time. Look at this. It's still that old ECB range is capping. And unless we get some kind of move, breakthrough, some kind of headline, that means that we break outside of this range. Therefore, we break outside of that choppy range on the DXY2. We'll stay range bound. So it's not good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. So we'll have to see what we get. Wishing everybody an awesome week ahead. Wishing everybody an awesome quarter ahead. Have a great one. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. As usual, hit me up on Twitter if you have any questions. I'll try and tackle them. Take care. Bye-bye. Have an awesome one.